So yes, this is about engines. So in the beginning, in order to have a more powerful engine, they just made the engine bigger, known as CCs. Well, in reality, the first person to actually invent the engine was Carl Benz. And before that, it wasn't really an engine. It was more like a big steam engine. It wasn't really the modern day engine. And then after Carl Benz modernized it and made that engine smaller, it was very weak. It was about as powerful as your electric scooter, but it was really good invention because that was like 200 years ago. And then after that, people wanted to race in those engines. So what they did is that they made that engine bigger. The problem with this is that makes the car heavier. It makes it harder to accelerate. Not only that, but it drinks still too much gas. So yeah, back then everyone and we all know that it drinks a bunch of gas. Like we have him just drinking gas, and yeah. But if you didn't know, this is what it looked like. It took really, really long to accelerate your RPMs. Like your RPMs will go really high, but you wouldn't get any speed because of these big fat engines. The RPMs, and because of its weight, even though it was really powerful, its weight slowed it down. For example, this would be better in a train engine. For example, since trains don't need to accelerate as much, and they don't even need to stop as much, because after they reach 80 miles an hour after like a minute, they just stay at that. They don't accelerate or decelerate since there's no traffic in front of them. But with cars, there is traffic, so they need to accelerate and decelerate. So someone came up with the idea of a turbo. Basically, there are two things you need for an engine to work. You need gas, and then you need oxygen. So, instead of getting bigger engines with more gas intake, they just added more oxygen. So, the engine would actually spin faster and go up and down faster, the pistons. And in reality, it would actually just be better for the engine, like its long-term health, since when you burn too much gas, what actually happens is that the carbon falls in the engine makes the engine smaller, so it decreases its horsepower over time. But with the turbos, the main drawback was that they got really, really hot. Since, if you didn't know, turbos were like the modern day version of, basically a gas intake. It increases the oxygen consumption using this type of device. So, as the hot air expels the engine, there's a rotor connected to that, and then takes more engine air from the inside. So instead of wasting that energy, what happens is that using that energy, we can actually power up the turbo, which takes an intake fan and increases the engine. Instead of just having air go through the engine, we actually even have a turbo, which actually sucks air inside the engine. So, this is the hot air side and this is the cool air side. And because they got really, really hot, they have radiators which look like this. There's also the engine pipe, or like the thing that covers your engine. This is basically that. So, it was basically like a turbo boost. It was like you could activate it and deactivate it. For example, let's say it's not like a normal engine. For example, let's say you have let's say you have a Mercedes-Benz with 3-liter, 4-liter engine with no turbo. And so your gas consumption will stay the same at 18, 19 miles per gallon. But with the turbo, you had two options. You had the engine, just the engine, which only got let's just get 30 miles per gallon. But if you add the turbo, it's basically like a turbo boost. It increases your horsepower, but like 90 to 100 horsepower extra in most cases in SUVs. But it also increases your gas consumption by 10. So it's, instead of 30 miles a gallon, you get 20 miles a gallon. So that's basically how it worked. And then you have hot air which goes inside the engine, which makes it really, really hot. And so yeah, this is basically a turbo. This is actually a twin turbo. So this is actually a quad turbo, since there are 4 pipes instead of just 1 pipe. So yeah, you can find these in hot rods and stuff like that.